Hello. Just about a year ago, I showed you how I set up my home art studio here, more or less entirely from start to finish. I'd drawn this kind of chaotic looking plan of the whole room, and that video covered most of that. But I thought about that at the time as being kind of phase one, and I've spent the last year continuing to add to it. I've made some big changes and improvements. So let me show you what I've been up to. This might not be a surprise to a lot of you, but over the last year, the studio was never as neat as it was at the end of the last video again. First thing that I did after I put that video up was put a wooden top onto this metal cabinet, and I really like it because it makes it feel a little bit warmer, you know? And then I had an art market coming up, and so I went to my parents and grabbed a bunch of my stock that had been kind of stored out the way over there, and all of a sudden I had boxes and boxes of prints and zines and stickers and pins piled up in here, and it stayed like that for months because I just didn't know where else to put it. And then one day I realized this cabinet here and an orange one over there was some dead space underneath them that I could use to build some drawers to store some of that stuff out of the way. I knew I wouldn't get rid of all of that stuff, but I just wanted to reduce the amount of boxes that were sitting around. And so I got a couple of decent sized drawers under this cabinet and a fairly deep one underneath the orange one, both of which were documented in videos, by the way. Anyway, I got all my zines into those drawers and quite a big chunk of prints, but not all of them. I still had quite a few that I didn't know where else to put, and that's when I realized, because of how the brackets extended down below these shelves, I could stick a smaller one below them, which would allow me to store the rest of my prints, as well as some packing materials. We've got some rigid cardboard backing for when I pack prints, keep them safe, stop them bending. I've also got some postcards, which I send out with orders to write a little thank you message, and it's been really great. My Etsy was shut while I was doing this, because trying to do both at the same time is just way too messy, and so the goal was get organized enough to reopen it, and have it so that when I'm trying to pack an order, I could do it as quickly and efficiently as possible, and I did that. Right after I did all that, I started building a workshop in my back garden because I've been getting absolutely absorbed with woodworking for the past few years, and it's a total dream to have a fully set up workshop in my own back garden so that I can make things whenever I want. That workshop is now fully built, and videos are coming on that pretty soon. But while I was building it, the studio became a bit of a dumping ground for just everything. There were tools everywhere, and huge sheets of insulation took up most of the room, and there was guttering and fascia and I think roof shingles in here at one point, just everything that you would need to build a building. It was pretty stressful for a while. I still had to work out of here, and so I just had this like narrow path from the door to my desk. As I built the workshop, more and more of that stuff left, and it returned to a more usable space. Before we continue with the update, I have a message from today's sponsor. It's a gambling app for children. No, Apple's got in touch, and they told me to tell you to buy an apple. With things starting to calm down around here, I decided to make a few shorts to show off some smaller changes that I'd been making. In one of them, I put some enamel pins onto this letter organizer that I got from IKEA. I had just been storing them in a glass jar, but this struck me as a nice way to show them off, and I think it looks really cool. In the next one, I made a place to store in-progress jigsaws under this desk. We started building one on our kitchen table, and then for weeks just couldn't eat dinner at the table. And so rather than scrape it back into the box, which Becca suggested multiple times, I built a tray so that you can slide it out of the way and get your table back. And to be fully honest with you, we haven't gone back to that jigsaw even one time since I made it. We're just not really big jigsaw people, but now we have a cool place to store them, I guess. In the next drawer, I decided that the way that I'd been storing my iPad on the wall could be improved a little bit. I had been using one elastic cord over the entire thing, but sometimes I would use it for reference images, and so I wanted to maybe find a way that would cover a little bit less of the screen. I just tied the elastic over one corner of the screen, and that worked great, and I shared it with people via the medium of short and reel and TikTok, and dozens of people suggested ways that I could change it, even though I said I didn't want to. They got to me anyway, and a few months later I bought another one of these hook things, and I cut it in half and I flipped it upside down, and now you slide the iPad in from the side, and as soon as I uploaded that, someone said the old way was better. And I didn't agree at first, but I think I do now. I think I preferred my old method. People just like to give their opinion, and they don't know you, never seen you before. They'll just leave a comment, usually telling you that you've done something wrong, and then they'll be gone. They'll never think about you again. And so I probably shouldn't let that influence me, because I can think for myself, and I know what works for me. This is Ozzy. At some point in the last year, we moved his tree in here because he just wasn't using it during the day. When we work from home, he likes to be around us, and so now he spends his days in here with me in his tree. Pretty big though. It's almost as tall as I am. And I don't love where it is in the room, but I don't know if there's a better spot for it. I really want them to be able to see out the window. That's the most important thing. So I guess really the question is just like, is there somewhere in this 5-foot square where it might be a better fit and somehow feel less imposing? I don't know. I wasn't going to chime in here, but I've just attached a microphone because I wanted to say that this is the layout that I'm going to try for a while. And I really like it. The tree kind of felt like it was right on top of me sometimes when it was right here when I'd be sat at my desk, so it feels a lot better. But what I really wanted to say is that even though Ozzy is directly in front of the window, he's not in direct sunlight at all. There's a porch that extends pretty far out in front of that window, probably 18 feet, probably, to the point where this room doesn't heat up the same as the others do. He'll be just fine. I can't believe it took me so long to talk about my plant. Even last year I knew that just one plant, even a single piece of greenery would make the place feel a lot better, and I finally did it. I don't know how to pronounce its proper name, but it's a Bella Palm, so this is Bella. I got the pot in Lidl for €4, and it was just plain blue. I really liked the colour of it, but I thought it'd be more fun to paint some zigzags onto it, and I did it with Posca pens, and it doesn't look very good yet. It's kind of patchy, so I'm going to have to probably use some acrylic paint to make it more opaque. I want the lines to be really clean, but it does look pretty good from afar. If I didn't tell you it was patchy, you wouldn't know. It looks good. So I've scooted back here on my tiptoes to tell you about what I would consider to be one of the two most exciting developments to have happened in this studio in the last year, and it involves my pocket notebooks. These are the Moleskine sketchbook kind, in case you were wondering. I've been carrying them for 10 years everywhere I go. This is number 19, and behind me, on this little shelf here, I have 1 to 18. They had just been stacked up on the shelf, and they were kind of messy, and so this year I decided to build a little bookshelf for them to keep them more organized. My notebooks are honestly some of my most prized things. All of my ideas go into them before they become real, you know. It's where I figure out a lot of stuff. And so I'm really glad that this year I was able to give them a nicer place to live, you know. I love it. I really love that it's big enough to keep all of my current notebooks on, but also it's kind of future-proofed a little bit. There's room for maybe 4 to 5 years of notebooks to come. The next thing I'd like to show you is the second of the two things which I'm most excited about. In a continued effort to free up some shelf space, I built something which appeared on the mega plan. It's my wall-mounted zine library. I just finished making it a couple weeks ago, and so I'm still kind of riding off the high of it, but it is my favorite thing that I've ever made. I got to try out some hand-cut joinery, and it's mounted on French cleats, and I hid the screws with plugs. I spent a really long time taking measurements to make sure that the heights of each section felt balanced and proportioned, and I love the way it sits around some frames that were already on the wall. A lot of the things that I did this year were attempts to organize the room better so that I could finally rid my parents' house of some of the stuff that I still have stored there, because it's been long enough at this point. It just kind of feels unfair on them, and so recently I put up some more shelving. Hi, it's me from the ground. I'm up here now. So this morning I was trying to use this stud finder to give me some insight as to where the studs might be above this door, and just like last year when I was trying to put up these shelves, it's useless. It gives me a different reading every time. This piece of tape indicates that it told me that there was one here at one point, and then it never told me that again. I'm pretty sure there's a stud right here, and I'm also pretty sure there's one just about here, which makes sense if you think about how the wall would be framed for the door opening. As to what happens in between, that's a mystery, but it doesn't matter. 2 brackets will be enough. I'm going to drill into where I suspect that there is a stud. If I find one, I will use a screw. If I don't find a stud, I'm going to use one of these wall dogs, they're called, which is a screw specifically designed for plaster. I used a few of them on these shelves where I couldn't find a stud, and they worked just fine. So that was my plan. I'm not going to deviate from it. Let's hope that works out. That's a stud, baby! Basically, you never want to have everything you need gathered around you all at once. You kind of want to have to get up and down the ladder a bunch of times. That's how the pros do it. Well, it's pretty straight. It's straight enough for DVD, is that right? These pieces of tape roughly denote where I want my uprights to sit on this wall, which is just about centered above a radiator below me. Big things to take into account here. This area here, a lot of electricity in the wall here, so we want to avoid that. Otherwise, the plan remains unchanged. In the process of putting these shelves together, I've discovered a pretty big problem with these brackets. Using a square, I can see that they are so not 90 degrees. They tilt back like this, so my shelf will tilt back like this. Also, one of the 6 brackets that I have, that is a problem with 4 of them. I think I got them all in the same place. I don't know how I would have got some that are mismatched, but anyway, I have a solution. I've made these little wooden triangles. They slide into the brackets, and the back is raised up in such a way that it levels out that angle. I've made 4 of them, so this will fix it. And now I'm ready for my shelves to go up. Last year I got a comment on my drawer building video from someone called Shubi Khan. You understand if I've mispronounced that. But they said, loving the slow yet calculated development of these studio videos shows you are really taking the time to consider what works best for the specific space and yourself as an individual. And I loved that because that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I don't want to jump the gun and just like fill it up with stuff that I don't really need. I'm being pretty discerning about what I actually need in here, and I'm like figuring that out slowly, you know? Like the shelves that I put up behind the door were originally just going to be behind the door, and then I thought like, hey, it's just kind of space that I'm not using above the door. Like hopefully that will look okay. I've seen people do it and I liked how it worked. But honestly, I was a little bit scared that it might make the place feel a little bit like claustrophobic or kind of cave-like. I think the level that I'm at now is pretty good, and I don't really have many more plans to keep putting stuff up. With that said though, I have put up a few more prints than were up last year, and then I put some frames up above my window, which again I hoped wouldn't feel too claustrophobic, but I like how they look up there. These are posters for Decaf, which is the Dublin Comic Arts Festival. It's a quarterly comics event which I helped to organise here in Dublin. Maybe there's room for like a couple more that I really like, but yeah, I just can't fill my walls completely. Yesterday, I moved some tools out of this cabinet and out into the workshop. That was kind of the last batch of tools that I had sitting around here, so it felt pretty good to get them out. And then I filled the cabinet with the last of my market stuff. It's not neat or organized, but it's off my floor, and that's something that I can tackle in the future. That leads me to now. The studio is neat and tidy again. It's never been as organized or efficient, and I love being in here more than ever. I work from home a few times a week, and pretty regularly I stop what I'm doing. I just look around and I take it all in. I love it so much. It's a really good place to be. If you're my boss and you're watching, it's only for a few seconds at a time. I do have plans for some more things that I want to do in here in the future. Nothing major, mind you, but either way, I won't get into them now. You'll see them when we get there. I think that is all I wanted to tell you about this time. So I'll just say thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.